Keith Grinke here from Top of My News, here with Joe El Dirty Doerksen. Joe, we had 3 fights in a row before summer, and then we haven't seen you fight all summer. How was your little vacation from the ring?
I talked to myself and my friends about taking a bunch of time off, but honestly, I took like 2 weeks. I took 2 weeks to just sit. I didn't see the inside of a gym for 14 days. And then I got right back into it. I started slow, started training just for fun. I went down to Salt Lake City, trained with Jeremy Horn for about 3-4 weeks. So, I spent about a month of the summer in Utah, and then I came back. So the summer was good, it was short. I spent a month away, so I missed about a month of summer here. But, I stayed busy, I stayed active in the gym, but just for fun, so it didn't feel like I was working that hard, just having a good time. I learned a few things, and, when it came time to start training for the next fight, then I was already in pretty good shape,
So we last saw you here in Winnipeg at CFC 5. You fought Sean Marchand. You ended quickly in like 40 seconds or so. You came in heavy. You showed your stand-up. You looked really impressive in the short amount of time we saw you. Why don't you talk us about that fight and how it was fighting in front of your hometown fans?
It's always good to fight in Winnipeg. It's always great to fight at home. There's just something really special about it. I can't really describe it, but it's always a great experience. And obviously, winning is good. And everybody knew that there was a UFC contract waiting for me on the other side of that fight, so it was great to come out there with a win. I think the reason it went so well is because I went in prepared for a hard fight. I went into that fight as well prepared as I would for any other fight, whether it be UFC or in Japan or anywhere else, and I took it seriously, and I went out there and made my best effort. I didn't take it lightly. I was tired from fighting twice before, but it was my 3rd fight in about 7 or 8 weeks, and I was tired mentally and physically, but I went in there and just decided to do a good job one more time and then relax. So, it went really well, and obviously I was happy to get a win and getting a TKO. Obviously, it looks good on TV and all that. So it was a good night.
Yeah, it was a good fight, and I think everyone had to breathe a sigh of relief when you finished that one over quickly, knowing what was on the line. At UFC 113, just before that, a couple weeks before, you fought Tom Lawler, and you got your first win in the UFC in quite a while. That must have been a big sigh of relief for yourself. And why don't you talk to us about that fight?
That fight was really good because, I was 1-5 in the UFC. It was to the point where, if I lost that one, I was never going to go back to the. I would have refused to go back. I just felt like I was cursed and it just wasn't going to happen. But, I went in there with the same attitude of, if I was fighting Tom Lawler outside of the UFC in a smaller show, it wouldn't bother me at all. So let's ignore the fact that it's a big show and that I haven't done well here before. Let's just focus on Lawler and the fighter that he is, and try to do the best job we can. And I think that's being a little bit older, more mature. I'm just more confidence, physically stronger, all that. Just mentally and physically, everything's been coming together for me. I went out there and I had a great fight, and obviously getting another win in the UFC feels really good, and it just gives me more confidence and momentum for the next one.
Now Lawler fought your next opponent, CB Dollaway, and he submitted him rather quickly. Did you get anything out of that fight?
It was such a quick fight. I think it doesn't really show, what Dollaway is capable of. I think it just, he made a mistake early on. He got caught in a submission, and that's just sometimes how it goes. I mean, it happens in the gym, it happens in fights, it happens all the time. I don't think it says too much about what one fighter can or can't do. It's just too fast of a fight. He's had other fights that went much longer, so. I don't really look too much at that fight. He made a mistake. Maybe he makes it again. Maybe he doesn't. But I wouldn't want to count on it. I'm not relying on it.
Yeah. So Dollaway hasn't fought in 7 months. You fought like 3 times since then. Does a layoff like that, do you find that beneficial at all, or would you rather stay active like you've been fighting? Is there anything to that from a fighter's point of view?
There's good and bad things about both. I mean, when you're fighting and when you're active and fighting a lot, you tend to sometimes get tired. You get injured. When you have a long layoff, you feel better, you feel rested, you feel hungrier, but at the same time, you might have a little bit of ring rust. So I think there's pluses and minuses for both of them. And I can't tell you what Dollaway's feeling, and I'm not sure I even care. I think for me, it's just a matter of how I feel, and for me, I feel rested, I feel hungry. Training went well. I'm eager to go fight, and Dollaway, whether people like him or not, is a talented fighter, and I think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's a good test for me.
Yeah. And we saw Dollaway last fight. He's on a 2-fight winning streak. He beat Goran Reljic and Jay Silva, both by maintaining top position. His previous 2 fights, we saw, in Ultimate Fighter 7, he lost to Tim Critter by submission, and he lost to Tom Lawler. by submission as well. Is that where you see, the ground is an advantage to yourself, or do you see it as a disadvantage? Like, where do you want this fight to happen?
I'm not really concerned too much whether we're on the ground or whether on our feet. I just want to make sure that if we are on the ground, that I'm not spending too much time on my back. Too many times in my career I've been too comfortable on my back and not taking damage. I've been able to protect myself, but not being offensive enough and losing close decisions to fighters that I think maybe I could have beaten. So the strategy for this fight, really honestly, is just to go out there and be aggressive and fight hard, be active throughout the whole fight. And if I do end up on my back, which of course I'm going to avoid, I don't want to be on my back, but if I do end up there, I don't want to spend too much time there. So I might go for 1 or 2 submissions, try to turn them over, and if that doesn't work, then I'll be looking to scramble back to my feet.
Yeah. So just saw your training session here, and you look in great shape. Talk about your training, where you've been training, who you've been training with.
I spent, like I said before I started training for this fight, I spent 3 or 4 weeks in Salt Lake City with Jeremy Horn. I enjoy going down there. I train with him a couple times a year. I do most of my traveling in between fights. When I'm getting ready for a specific fight, then I like to be at home with my regular team. I have a strength and conditioning coach just down the road from the gym, and I train with my head coach Giuseppe Natali here at the Canadian Fighting Center. So I like to be close to home. I like to be around my friends and family. I like to be with my regular team. The last 6 to 8 weeks, I don't like to travel too much. So I've been pretty much here in Winnipeg for the last 8 weeks, and working hard on a regular schedule, and I feel great.
So you said earlier that as you're older, you're an older fighter. I think a lot of people see you as an old timer in the sport. One of the most experienced Canadians in this. But you're only 32. You've had like almost 60 fights. I think you're 48 and 12, 46 and 12. I mean, like, how long are you going at this? Are we going to see 100 fights from Joe Doerksen?
100 fights, I don't know. I'm not going to commit to that.
Yeah. But 10, you've had 60 fights in 10 years.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is I still feel like I'm improving. I still feel like I'm learning. I still feel like I'm a better fighter today than I was yesterday, and I feel like my best fights are in front of me. When I feel like my best fights are behind me, then it might be time to call it quits. But for now, I'm still healthy. I still have the drive to go out there and work hard every day, and I'm still excited and interested in the game. So as long as those things are in place, I'm going to continue to fight.
Well, we can't wait to see you fight next weekend at UFC 119 in Indianapolis. Top of my news, we thank you for your time. I don't know if you have anybody to thank here at the end of this.
Just the same people that have been with me for a long time. Obviously, Coach Natali and all my training partners at the Canadian Fighting Center. My strength and conditioning coaches at McDowell Performance Center, and just everybody that I've trained with, whether it be here in Winnipeg or in Milwaukee with Duke Rufus or Jeremy Horn in Salt Lake City. Just all the people that I work with day to day. They're the reason that I'm able to do what I do, and without their support, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I just want to say thank you to all of them, and of course my friends and family, and for all their support, and the fans for making this sport relevant.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, Joe.
No problem.